My name is Clara Bennett, and before last autumn, I would have described my life as quietly ordinary, a mosaic of small moments, pieced together over 67 years in Maple Hollow, New York. I'd spent most of my adult life as a nurse in a little county hospital just north of the riverside, tending to sprained ankles, comforting families through midnight fevers. Retirement brought a slower rhythm, tending to my tomatoes, fussing over crossword puzzles, and watching the squirrels dart about my backyard. My daughter, Allison, lives 12 minutes away, her 2 little ones, Will and Nora, often crashing through my kitchen, scattering laughter in their wake. I treasured the soft cadence of routine, a steaming cup of coffee, morning prayers whispered over the faucet, gentle birdsong threading through open windows. If you've ever lived a life stitched together by worry, you understand my nights. As a nurse, I'd witnessed suffering up close, and as a grandmother, a new kind of fear crept in, one for the world my grandchildren would inherit. Last September, the anxiety pressed heavier than usual. The television blared for days, saturated by the news that shook the nation. The assassination of a prominent political figure, Tyler Brooks. It wasn't politics that rattled me, but the venom fracturing our country in his aftermath. Faces twisted with rage on the screen. Reporters, neighbors, anonymous interviewees. The air in Maple Hollow, once filled with autumn leaves and the promise of cider, now seemed thick with conflict. I cried that night, seated in my fraying armchair. Tears fell for Tyler Brooks' family, for the person who pulled the trigger, for the millions watching in horror and confusion. I prayed, long and hard, for peace, for something to break through the bitterness rolling across our land. Eventually, exhaustion dragged me into sleep. The morning came pale and silent. Dread clung to my chest, making each breath feel like something solid lodged inside me. I shuffled to the kitchen, every step heavier than the last. The smell of yesterday's coffee mingled with crisp air from the open window. My hand reached for a mug, another masterpiece from Will, all swirling reds and golds, just as a burning ache pierced my chest. Pain, a searing, urgent agony, not cinematic or dramatic, but all-consuming. My knees buckled. The mug slipped through my fingers, spilling shattered fragments across the linoleum. I registered the mess in passing, Allison's voice somewhere in my mind, scolding me lovingly for leaving a trail. And then it happened. The world tipped sideways, colors bleeding into a haze. The ceiling light above me dissolved into a milky blur, distant and dim. My heart thudded a rapid, final beat, a frantic drum signaling farewell. Silence enveloped me, yet I was not gone. In a heartbeat, I found myself adrift above my own body. There I was, coiled in my faded robe, framed by spilled coffee and the broken mug's bright shards. I felt no pain, no fear, only a muted curiosity and profound detachment. I observed my wiry gray hair against the floor, the wrinkles folded deep into my brow. My first clear thought, Allison is going to be so annoyed when she sees this mess. Strange, how even at the edge of existence, a mother's instincts endure. From the living room, the television still buzzed, a muffled, underwater chorus of voices. They talked of politics, violence, blame. The world's anger seemed to pulse through the walls of my home, undisturbed by my absence. I felt an unfamiliar sensation, like being tugged gently by a slow current. The kitchen, my body, the world as I knew it, all shrank, compressing in on itself as if viewed through a child's toy telescope. I drifted, neither rising nor falling, pulled onward. A tunnel unfolded before me, a swirling river of light, soft and radiant, reminiscent of the dawn after a sleepless night. It wasn't frightening. If anything, the journey felt like a bomb, melting away decades of worry and regret. Finally, there was silence, an absolute, sacred hush. I realized how heavy my burdens had become, after years of worrying for patients, children, strangers. In this new place, all of that weight lifted, as if I were finally allowed to step out from beneath a winter coat too heavy for spring. The direction, the destination were uncertain, but for once, Uncertainty did not bring fear. I surrendered to the peace, letting it pool inside me, letting it mend old pieces of my soul. The light unfurled, opening not into a room or sky, but into pure presence, a state of being that erased words and boundaries. And in that being, I was not alone. He was there. I understood immediately who he was, not by sight, but by knowing, by the recognition planted deep within my spirit since childhood. He was not a figure as much as a presence, wrapped in a radiance that didn't burn or blind. It was a kind of truth, humming with a warmth that pierced the deepest layers of my spirit. There was no stained glass or golden crown, nothing resembling the images brushed across church walls. Yet every part of me recognized him, the way a lost child knows a parent's embrace before seeing their face. In his nearness, I waited for the welcome I had anticipated all my life, the reunion after so much missing. What I felt was not joy, at least not at first. It was sorrow, a sorrow so deep it made every heartbreak I'd ever known something small by comparison. It rolled off him in silent waves, filling the space with a gravity that bowed my soul. I stood in his presence, and the tears came, not of pain or fear, but of understanding. The grief nested inside him was the grief of a father watching children turn on one another, and it was now my own. He did not speak the way we do, yet his words slipped inside my mind, clearer than any spoken sound. "Clara, look!" I did not answer. I only listened, letting the sadness fill me up, rooting me in place. Around us, the light seemed to shift with his will, and I found myself gazing down as if from a balcony above the world, not seeing buildings or landscapes, but seeing hearts. The first vision gathered itself like mist and formed into a family at their dinner table. I knew them. They could have been anyone, anywhere, but their pain was specific. The father's face was flushed, his voice brittle with anger, while his son shot back words like flaming arrows, fists clenched upon the tablecloth. The mother's eyes sank into her plate, sheltering tears that would not fall. It wasn't politics anymore. It was personal, a battle neither could win. As they fought, I saw something else, a dark thread weaving through their rage, pulling them apart. The enemy does not break down the door when he's invited to the dinner table. The thought arrived, laced with sorrow. That hatred was not merely an emotion, I realized. It had presence, shape, hunger. It lived among them and fed off their anger. I watched it grow and thicken, forming a heavy rope that would choke out everything gentle between them. Before I could process the weight of the scene, the vision shifted. Now I stood inside a church, vaulted ceiling filtering sunlight through stained windows. This was not a place of peace. The congregation, who had once prayed together and baptized each other's children, now faced each other in silence, separated by a widening crack down the center aisle. Prayers had become weapons, and I felt the air thicken with old wounds reopened. They used my name, echoed inside me, but they did not carry my heart. They chose a flag over my cross. The line drawn across their sanctuary was not chalk. It was a deep chasm, nothing but emptiness beneath. A city appeared next, bustling, unremarkable, yet stifled by suspicion. People hurried through crowded sidewalks, heads lowered, eyes darting with caution, their hearts thrumming with distrust. I could hear the silent questions skirt between them. What side are you on? What do you believe? Fear throbbed in every heartbeat, filling the spaces between them with a quiet dread no news report could dissolve. And then, the most chilling part, a multitude of shadows gathered in the corners and crevices, lurking in the very places people felt alone. Not monsters, not demons with horns, but shapes like cold drafts curling through summer heat. These spirits, neither seen nor named, moved among the angry, whispering in their ears, stoking the fires of bitterness, delighting in every hateful word spoken aloud or typed into phones. With each harsh message sent into the world, the shadows grew, fat and content on the nutrition of division. "What is this?" I pleaded, my soul racked in grief as the scenes played out. The presence beside me wrapped me in warmth, not to shield me from sorrow, but to share it. "This is the true war," his thought pulsed. "The soul of your nation is sick. I felt a burning truth. The events that had shattered my world, the violence, the assassination, were but symptoms of a darker illness, a poisoned river swelling beneath our feet. The true danger is not the bullet, but the hatred it awakens. America stands at a river of blood, fed by angry words and bitter hearts. His words were potent, searing themselves into the core of me. Only love can turn it back into living water. I saw then how each bitter argument, each split in a family or faith, each venomous post was another drop in that poisonous river. "My children are perishing," he said, sadness flooding me anew. "They are so busy fighting for their earthly kingdoms that they have forgotten my heavenly one." I wept, feeling the pain not only of my own life, but the ache flooding through the soul of the nation, as if its wounds had become mine. He stood beside me, warmth and gravity intermixed, communicating a love deeper than any loss I'd known. They ask for victory when they should be begging for mercy. They ask for justice when they should be offering forgiveness. His thoughts settled into me, more lasting than memory. I searched for words, but the feeling was so vast it made everything small. My mind raced through my own story, times I'd been quick to judge, moments I'd clung to being right instead of seeking understanding. As a nurse, compassion was my trade, but here I realized how easy it was to let resentment take root even in good hearts. My spirit trembled in the shadow of his sadness. "What can we do?" I asked with every fiber desperate for hope. "It's too much. It's all too big," he answered, his presence touching my heart in ways words could never describe. "It starts small," he imparted gently. "It starts in here." I felt an intangible hand pressed to my chest, a movement not of flesh, but of soul, as comforting as the voice that soothed me through childhood nightmares. "It starts with one person choosing mercy over being right," his thought echoed, soft and bright. "It begins with one prayer for an enemy, a real prayer from the heart, one family turning off the news and truly seeing each other again." At that, I watched as the river of poison slowed just a fraction, the shadows retreating with every act of quiet love, each moment of forgiveness. Drops of clean, living water fell into the current, small, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakably pure. Peace pooled around me in the presence of that love. For the first time, the worries that pulled me through my worldly years faded into insignificance. Here, there was no argument, no division, no pain. Only a sorrowful, powerful love so acute it made me wish I could stay forever, draped in its certainty and warmth. I looked up into the perfect light beside me, a light containing both the weight of the universe's grief and its infinite promise. "Please," I whispered, a child's voice surfacing amid the wisdom of age. "Please let me stay. I'm so tired, the world is just too broken." He smiled then, and it was unlike any human smile, a cosmic smile, a gesture that seemed to hold every star in the universe. "My dear child," the thought filled with tenderness so profound it made my soul ache, "your work is not yet finished. You were brought here for a reason, to see, to know, to return and be a witness." A flood of meaning swept over me. This death was not a mistake or a cruel loss, but a calling. I felt his sorrow give way to trust, a trust so deep I was certain the world did not deserve it, yet it was offered freely. The mission was clear. Tell them what you saw. Tell them my heart is broken. Tell them the war they are fighting is not against flesh and blood, but against the darkness feasting on their division. I nearly protested, wanting to cling to the peace behind the veil, but his words settled firmly in my heart. "Go back and tell them to love. That is all. It is the only weapon that will win this war." And just as gently as I had arrived, I felt the pull, now unmistakable, urging me away from warmth, away from him, away from the serenity. I cried, begged to stay, but the decision was not mine. "I am with you," he reminded me. "Always." Suddenly, the silence fractured. The light unraveled into rushing noise, and I was falling, spiraling away from the sacred hush, from the presence that had changed me. My first sensation was pain, a brutal, searing weight pressing on my chest, sharper than before. The light was not gentle now, but harsh and fluorescent, and foreign voices filled the air. My eyes opened to frantic faces and scrubs, a machine beeping to announce my improbable return. Allison's voice sliced through the confusion. "Mom, you're breathing. Oh God, Mom, you're alive!" Her tears wetting my hands, her relief thunderous in the sterile room. Every sorrow and love seemed to converge in those moments as I gasped for air, swallowing fire and ice, knowing for certain that a part of me had died and another had awakened. In the weeks that followed, the world itself scarcely seemed real. The hospital room was a swirl of antiseptic scents, worried faces, and that relentless hum of fluorescent lighting, so loud, so artificial after the holy hush I'd known beyond. Nurses and doctors drifted in and out, marveling at my recovery, shaking their heads at the medical impossibility that I was alive and by all accounts unchanged. The physician in charge lingered at my bedside one evening, peering over my chart as if it might yield secrets I alone could explain. "Mrs. Bennett, by every measure you should not be here," he admitted, uncertainty roughening his gentle voice. "There's no brain damage. The time you were gone, it's hard to make sense of it." I offered only a small smile, a secret trembling at the corners of my mouth. "Some things," I whispered, "are not for science to solve." Allison never left my side. She appeared hollowed by relief, her hands always resting somewhere on my body, as if through constant touch she might anchor me to this earth for good. Yet in her presence, I could see the glimmer of something new, an awakening, perhaps. It was there in the questions she asked and the silences that stretched between us. Recovery was slow, but my mind rarely drifted far from what I had seen. At times I wondered if it was all a hallucination, the desperate fabrication of a brain starved for oxygen. But the feeling in my heart, an overwhelming need to forgive, to love, to reach out, was too real, too lasting to be born from fantasy. Days grew into weeks, and Maple Hollow moved forward in its gentle, stubborn way. The leaves shifted from the fiery reds of September to the gold and rust of October, and the town resumed its routines. Yet everything in me had changed. I no longer viewed my neighbors through a lens sharpened by suspicion or past old grievances. Petty arguments about politics, faith, or the affairs of the town counsel melted into insignificance. When people spoke with anger or resentment, I heard underneath it a different calling, a hunger for love, a longing to belong. I reached out, gently, always quietly, mending fences where I could, offering forgiveness where pain still smoldered. I found myself compelled to look into the eyes of everyone I met, at the market, on the church steps, along the wooded path that skirted the river's edge. I listened more closely than I ever had before. Sometimes I would see it, the flash of heartache, of loneliness, of fear that the world was still poised at the brink. I remembered the river of poison I'd seen, the shadows thriving on division, and I made a promise, one small drop at a time, to offer the living water he had asked for. The strangest part of my return was the sense of being both more alive and more at peace with the prospect of death than I had ever been. There was a new clarity about what matters, the fleeting joy of a child's laughter, the balm of a reconciled friendship, a prayer whispered for someone I once detested. Sometimes I found myself weeping with gratitude for the second chance, feeling as though I carried a piece of that sorrowful, powerful love with me, always, like a lamp burning in my chest. At church, I spoke softly, rarely sharing details of my experience. But the message pressed in my heart was insistent. I told whoever would listen that life is too short for bitterness, too mysterious for certainty, and that the true battles we fight are never against our neighbors but against the cold, silent shadows that grow in the cracks of our division. The initial pain of coming back faded, replaced by a deeper unity with the world and a yearning to help heal it. I was changed, but I was also part of this world again, a flawed, luminous patch in its frayed fabric. And whenever sorrow or anger threatened to overwhelm, I closed my eyes, remembered the light, and heard the command again, love. Just love. That is all. Life after death had become life before death, a transition not marked by the moment of leaving but by the conscious choice to live differently upon return. My days were no longer measured in routines or rhythms, but in acts of intentional love and forgiveness, no matter how small. The heaviness that once pressed on my chest was replaced by a lightness of being that coexisted with the world's brokenness. Sometimes when the morning sun spilled through my kitchen window and little Nora's giggles echoed down the hall, I remember the silence beyond and the profound sorrow I had witnessed. I realized the battle that raged wasn't political, nor was it about sides or opinions. It was spiritual, a war for every heart, for every fractured family, every divided community. I was living proof of what could happen when the veil thins, when a soul is called back, given a glimpse of the whole, and charged with a mission to sow love where there had only been division. Each morning, I would bow my head in prayer, not just for my family or my town, but for the whole nation teetering on the edge of hatred's river. I prayed for mercy, for courage to choose kindness when fury beckoned, for the strength to be a single droplet of healing water in a poisoned stream. There were days when the shadows crept in close, tempting me to despair or bitterness. On those days, I remember the presence that held me in silence, the sorrowful embrace of love, so vast to carry the weight of all the world's pain. That memory was my anchor, and so the story I share is not just mine. It's a message carried on every whispered prayer, every act of forgiveness, every moment of quiet love. It is the story of a nation wounded but not beyond healing, a people divided yet capable of reunion. I am Clara Bennett, once lost to death and now sent back to remind my country, remind us all, that the only true weapon against the darkness is love. That despite the noise, the anger, and the heartbreak, love alone has the power to turn the river back into living water. This is what I was shown, what I was sent back to carry. And until my final breath, I will not stop telling it.